Welcome to another edition of the Invisible Wheelchair Interview Podcast. I'm Donald Grodoff, family coach with FamilyOCD.com, FocusedHealthyFamily.com, and of course, InvisibleWheelchair.com. In the Invisible Wheelchair interviews, I get the wonderful chance to interview some of the experts with obsessive compulsive disorders, professionals that treat OCD, people who are going through or have been through OCD, parents and caregivers of those suffering from OCD, and of course anyone that advocates for treatment of OCD. My goal of these interviews is to inform people on all aspects of OCD and bring about awareness of obsessive compulsive disorder. Please remember that I am not a doctor, therapist, or counselor, and the content, information, resources, and ideas that are talked about and brought up here in these interviews are not necessarily the views and opinions of myself, Family OCD, Focused Healthy Family, and Invisible Wheelchair Podcast, and I always recommend to seek additional professional help in finding solutions for yourself. You can find out more about me at FamilyOCD.com, FocusedHealthyFamily.com, and InvisibleWheelchair.com. I'm excited today to be able to introduce you a friend and a mother who suffers OCD herself. Her name is Lynn Milam. Lynn is a 53-year-old homemaker who also cares for an elderly mother. She has been married for 29 years to her husband Donnie, who is a commercial contractor in Concord, North Carolina. She has two sons, one 21 years old and one 10 years old. The homeschooled 21-year-old just graduated from CPCC and has just moved 4 hours from home. The 10-year-old is a rising fifth grader at Boger Elementary. She has been living with bipolar disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, and OCD her whole life. Both children suffer from generalized anxiety disorder and some mild form of OCD and sensory disorders. Lynn's here today to share her story and give more information about what she's been through. So let's go to that interview now. Well, Lynn, I really want to thank you for being part of the Invisible Wheelchair Podcast and for talking and sharing your life and your story here on the Invisible Wheelchair Podcast.
Nice to be here, Don. I'm happy to do it.
Well, Lynn, when I get people on here to talk, I always like to add kind of a personal touch to it. So if you'd like to share a little bit of a story about yourself in some way that could help our audience know you better.
Sure. I am a person who has struggled with OCD my whole life. I didn't get an official diagnosis until I was in my mid-30s, but looking back now, I know that it started as early as my teen years, and it's something that I deal with today, and I don't think that I will ever not deal with it. It's part of my daily life today.
Begs me to ask then, how do you see it affecting your daily life? Things you have to do, things you don't do. Maybe you can mention like what some of the compulsions that you are dealing with on a daily basis.
I have a compulsion with germs. When my OCD flares, I feel like everything is contaminated around me and I have a need to disinfect. I will have a compulsion to wash my hands obsessively to the point to where they're raw and bleeding at times. I have to disinfect anything that my children or my family is touching. I have a compulsion with numbers. I have to run numbers through my head, check numbers, for example, in my checking account and in my checkbook to make sure they're correct. I have a compulsion with order. Everything has a place and it has to be in that place. Or I can't rest. I can't go to sleep if I think that the remote isn't turned in an exact position. If I lay my head on the pillow and I think, oh, the remote isn't turned in a position that it's supposed to be in, I'll have to get up and go make sure that it's turned in the proper place before I can go to sleep. So it's those, and I know they're irrational thoughts, but those are the compulsive thoughts that can control my mind and control my life, unfortunately.
How often does this flare up? Is this something that you do every day, like cleaning or the disinfecting? Is that something you have to do every day?
You know, not as much, fortunately. I've, through a lot of therapy, a lot of cognitive therapy, I've learned tools where I can talk myself down. That's what I tell it. I
Okay.
call it. I talk myself down. But I do, I'm not going to lie. I do disinfect a lot, but not to the degree that it used to be. My hands haven't been raw for a couple of years now. But I do wash my hands a lot every day. It doesn't control me to the point to where I can't leave my home the way it has in the past. I do have coping tools. I carry baby wipes instead of bleach.
I'm curious now as if you could take it in a little deeper as to how you see it affecting in your parenting. I can only imagine with the germ thing as you raised small children, babies, where that could have really played a big role.
It was really difficult, and it was hard because, I felt like when I would take the boys out with a child, you feel like every little germ or is going to attack them anyway. It was interesting with me. I was never fearful about viruses and bacteria. Like if someone were to sneeze on them, that wasn't the bacteria that concerned me. It was always contamination of, like, I don't even know really how to put it into words, like someone had to physically touch them, lay hands on them, or if they laid hands on someone else. It wasn't necessarily an airborne effect to them. So we could go out, that wouldn't concern me as much as if they were touched or if they touched something. So to a degree, I had some control over it. And it wasn't as difficult as it could have been. But I will tell you that, yes, they were constantly wiped down and cleaned off a lot because of it.
Was things like blood a problem?
No, it wasn't. No.
Interesting. If we were to ask your family, like one of the kids or your husband, how they saw it, what do you think they would say? What are they seeing? Yeah.
Well, it was really funny when Don and I first got together. He would laugh and make fun of me about the remote control. Was a real big kicker with him. He would think it was a joke. He would purposely turn the remote control around just to irritate me and not realize what anxiety he was creating in me until we were together much longer and he saw, okay, this is not a joke with her. This is a serious problem. Now, after being together almost 30 years, he would tell you, yeah, this has a lot of control over her. And the boys know, yeah, mom has to be able to wash her hands, or like there's a problem. If mom carries baby wipes in her car, she has to have them. Or if I can't wash my hands, like I can go into a panic mode almost if I need it. It creates a lot of anxiety in me. Or if I can't get to some hot water, I can experience a panic attack. It has happened before, and it's just, something they've learned to live with. I guess they're just used to it, and they can kind of laugh it off. And I don't know how a stranger would see it. In our little house, it's just the way life is. So that's all they know, and they're just kind of used to it.
do you feel like they feed the OCD some by giving in, or do they help you in some way, or both?
No, I don't think they feed it. My therapist would probably beg to differ with me. She would say yes, by giving in that they make it worse. Donnie has seen me go into a bad panic attack when I haven't been able to, when I haven't had access to water, when I need to wash when I've felt contaminated. I think that he needs to, he's experienced seeing me in that situation to where it's like I felt like I'm going to die, and to him, if that's all I need to get relief, he's going to get that for me.
Mm-hmm.
So for him, I think in his mind, that's okay. And again, I've come a long way from scrubbing and scouring my hands till they're raw till today. All I need is a simple wash. I've come a long, long way.
Sounds like it, and I'm glad for you, because I've been down that road with Abby. Same thing, till it was sore, till they were
Yeah.
bleeding. So.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that you've gotten some tools, and I think, can you go more into that as to how do you feel like you do manage it? I mean, it sounds like you're managing it, probably not as much as you probably would have liked to. It sounds
Right.
like,
Right.
but how do you feel like you are managing it? You've also said that it's cut down a lot from where it was. How do you feel like you've gotten there?
I've gotten there because a lot of it is I did have good therapy. I think that I had a great therapist, and she made me stay in the moment and realize, okay, look, what I have on my hands is I'm not going to die from, I had to sit. I had to sit there with her one day. And in the moment when I felt like I was going to explode from not being able to clean my hands, and she worked me through that moment and taught me how to talk myself down. That's what I call it.
Mm-hmm.
Learning how to talk myself down when I feel that severe anxiety coming through, when all I can think about is getting in some water, needing that water to rinse the contamination off. Having that tool is just one of the greatest things, one of the greatest gifts I was ever given. I can say that being a 53-year-old woman. Telling me that if I was an 18-year-old woman, I don't know that would have ever worked.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a long road in between the two.
Well, I can tell you what a 9 or 10-year-old would do, and it took a long time to get that message through. So I agree with you. I think I was going to ask you, like, do you feel like age has helped to temper that down too? I mean, just the fact of getting older and more mature.
I do. I do think it has. I think age, sometimes I think just getting older, the disease itself has just settled with age. I think maybe it's just gotten tired.
Got a little arthritis and some
Yeah,
other
yeah.
stuff going on inside
It's
that OCD.
Yeah, I mean, I think my brain, whatever that misfire is, whatever those neurons, whatever that part of my brain is just getting old, and it's just, like everything else is just breaking down and is just getting tired of fighting the battle.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not going to clean another thing. I'm too tired.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But, I still have those tendencies. I mean,
Yeah.
and I think I will just have them to the day I die, but I make a conscious effort. I really have for years, where I used to just give in to the impulse. I never tried to fight it.
Mm-hmm.
Where now I make a conscious effort to fight it every time I have the impulse. I guess that's the only difference now is I try. But again, I don't know that I could have done that, and I don't know that you can expect a young child, especially a little child, to do that. It's so hard. It's such a hard disease.
Yeah. We're
And
experiencing it now with Jason. Jason's having some of the same kind of issues, and yeah, for a 9-year-old, it just doesn't. It's hard to grasp that you can fight this. So I understand that fully.
it's a lot to ask.
What do you say to yourself? How the talk down? I'm very curious about it. It sounds neat. How do you? What kind of wording do you say to yourself to encourage yourself to stop?
First of all, I try to be in the moment. You know,
Okay.
I breathe. I
Okay.
stop. I literally will get on the floor sometimes if it's really bad, and I'll just breathe through it. I'll
Okay.
just take a couple of minutes and I'll breathe, take several deep breaths, and try to stop the panic from flowing in and calm myself down and just start telling myself there's nothing contaminating me and contaminating me. Just calm down. Just calm down. Just look at my hands. Look at my hands. There's nothing on there. Because a lot of times when I was younger, I would look at my hands and I wouldn't even really see my hands. All I would see, it would be, it's almost hard to explain. It would be like I would disassociate from my body.
Wow.
It would be like for me looking up above myself down. It would be like a total separation from my body is the only way I could say it. That
Yeah.
happened when I was a lot younger, when it first started happening into my 20s. I had a lot of that when it was really severe. So when I say I talk myself down, I kind of pull myself back together. But I will not lie and say to you that in those moments, I still don't have to go to the sink and, slightly wash my hands and tap them dry.
Hmm.
If that's all I have to do, that's okay.
Yeah.
If that's what I need, that's okay, because that's just a little. Or if I have to take a Lysol wipe just to wipe down the handle on the doorknob compared to a bucket of bleach that I would have done 5
Yeah.
years ago, that's 100% better.
Yeah.
You
Having said that, is there any other advice you'd give to any other parent that's going through what you go through?
that's really hard. I think I feel so much for you, and it's easy for me to say be patient, but be patient, because my heart breaks for your child, because the struggle that they're in so much pain.
Hmm.
They're literally in pain. Your body, you're in physical pain. When I am in my flares, I'm in physical pain. It's not just something that I need to do. I'm in physical pain. And if I can't get what I need to stop it, it just dominoes into something else. Then this
Hmm.
panic starts in and you feel like you're going to die. So then something else is coming in on you. So if you have a soft place to fall with somebody who understands you, that's the greatest gift you can give your child, is to be patient, although that has to be the hardest thing to do
Yeah. Tell me about it.
in that moment when your child is really going nuts. And I know that's a terrible word, but
No, no, it's not. It's like, well, with the experience I've had, that is not, that's actually an understatement for
yeah,
what we went through. I mean, it was crazy nuts. But yeah, I agree that that other person, and I was thinking of that when you were talking about Donnie and how he laughed at first.
mm-hmm,
And that's something I see a lot with not just OCD, but with other anxiety disorders, is that one partner doesn't believe that it's true, that it's real, that it's, so I try to get both both parents to understand that this is real. This is a real thing that's happening in their head, not just they're not just making this up. They're not just playing a game or joking about something, that it's real. So your
right,
point with Donnie was very, very good, because that's something I see all the time.
yep.
Well, Lynn, this has been wonderful to hear your story and to know and understand now what you've gone through and what you go through, I think is helpful for anybody to hear, because it gives a ray of hope to somebody else that might be going through the same thing. And so I appreciate very much you giving us that your side of it and all the different information.
Oh, you're welcome, Don.
That concludes this interview podcast. Please leave me a comment or question below. That gives me good direction where to go on future podcasts and interviews. I would love to hear your invisible wheelchair stories if you are willing to share it. If you would go to invisiblewheelchair.com and click on Tell Your Story. I want to remind you that OCD, Obsessive Compulsive Disorder, is treatable. I can help you get past OCD. So, if you have heard this interview podcast and other podcasts, and you feel like you need further assistance and would like to spend some time with me working through any issues you have, then feel free to book a session at focusedhealthyfamily.com or familyocd.com, or call me at 704-562-1630. I also offer $85 off of your initial discovery session if you mention that you heard it on this podcast. I hope you enjoyed this interview podcast and will join me for the next one. Remember, keep tapping, talking, and transcending your life to new heights. Thank you, and have a great day.